Welcome to Founder Radio. I'm your host, Hugo. In this podcast, you'll hear in-depth conversations with the globe's most exciting company founders. We'll talk about their ideas, their successes, their challenges, and their learnings along the way. At Founder Radio, we celebrate founders, and we believe that innovative founders are critical to deal with the challenges humans face. They are society's explorers and work in uncertainty to expand our practical knowledge each and every day. Building something from scratch requires creativity, intelligence, conviction, and endurance. Get inspired and learn from those that are changing the world. Hello everyone, welcome back to Founder Radio. Great to have you. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. We're talking to Piet Janssen. Piet is a pharmacist by training and he founded MedApp in 2015. MedApp started as a medication adherence app, but eventually rolled out an integrated online pharmacy with delivery in 2020. They are bringing Uber Eats style convenience to medicine for the people that need it most. Piet, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ho. Thanks for having me.
How does MedApp work from a customer journey perspective?
From a customer journey perspective, MedApp is very much you are a user of chronic medication. You download our app, and that's because you see us or a medical professional recommends us. You download the app, you identify yourself, you file for an intake appointment, you get a call with a pharmacy technician, and we ask repeat prescriptions on your behalf at the different prescribers, and then we start delivering medication to your door. And what's then most important is that we actually help you to take your medication in a better way. So I think that's one of the big USPs of MedApp for the chronically ill.
I'm so pleased to hear that you developed this and started this. I've been thinking about this, oftentimes waiting in line at traditional pharmacies. For the audience, could you explain and describe what's wrong with the way that traditional pharmacy works?
Well, I think there's a few things that can be improved. I'm not sure to say if it's totally wrong. I think, first of all, it's a transaction-based model that they've developed. So people are coming there to get their medication and then they leave, where pharmacies now tend to focus more and more, or they need to focus more and more on helping you take your medication in a better way. A traditional pharmacy does not have the data to set up that model because they work in a transactional-based way. So they cannot really help you at home. It's only within the brick and mortar setting that they've created. So I think that's a big improvement point for the traditional sector. And then next to that, it's a one-size-fits-all model. So that means that whether you are chronically ill with 20 different medicines on a daily basis, or you are probably just like you, just going to pick something up, it's completely different customers. I think that's where they struggle to cater these different sides of the spectrum and provide still good care.
And what about delivery? In my mind, that's a huge advantage of what you do as well versus traditional pharmacies, where it's very normal to wait for half an hour in line to just pick up your medicine.
Yeah. So there is the pharmacies have been transforming there. I think also COVID has pushed them because that was a time where, of course, everything changed and more delivery was needed. Back in the days, pharmacies were delivering, and they actually were doing that for the most vulnerable people. There's no business model in delivering. It's a cost center. So insurers, they refuse to pay for the delivery. So the pharmacies are very reluctant to basically offer the option. And that means for you as a normal customer that the delivery is never an option. And I think that's something that we've changed to make delivery front and center in our service model. But then the funny thing is that we are targeting the chronically ill as well. So I think there are many people in our customer base that would also, they could apply for a delivery from a local pharmacy as well.
Okay. Because they're chronically ill, you mean?
Because they're chronically ill, and I think because they use so much, a pharmacy wants to give them decent service. So I guess that's why they, in most cases, they will get the delivery.
Oh, understood. And have traditional pharmacy companies tried to protect their business?
Yeah, and the pharmacies they're very well united, I think, in all the different European countries, but in the Netherlands especially, and that's because there are only so few. So we have approximately 2,000 community pharmacies on a population of, you know it better than I, but 17.5 or 17.4 or something. If you look at other countries, it's way more pharmacies, and that means more people, more room for competition. And in the Netherlands, they unite in, let's say, a professional association, they unite in lobby, and they are definitely trying to block you and to stop you. And that's because they are afraid that things will change and that they will miss out. And the way they can block you, and that's something I might have not realized in fully at the beginning, is that the model is a bit more complex. So for them, in many cases, a customer is a GP. It's a person who provides a lot of prescriptions for them to process them and to deliver them out to the actual customer, what then in healthcare is called the patient. And what they do and what they can do is that they have the opportunity to influence the GPs that they work with a lot. So they meet, let's say, monthly, bi-monthly basis. They can tell to the GPs and to their technicians. So let's say the doctor assistant, they can say, hey, this is a party that's not really reliable. These are cowboys. They do not check for adverse events. No drug interactions, not really well communication. And they can also tell that to customers. So there are people then getting afraid and also opting out for the service. But the advantage on the other hand side, I think that's a MedApp advantage. If you do this on a national basis, then there's always places where people are not so sharp and where there are customers that they have a stronger voice and a stronger will, and they are willing to make the switch.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And happy to hear that that's happening. To me, from the outside, it seems like a very regulated business. So what did you need to get right to be able to even start in terms of permits, maybe partnerships with insurance, anything else that was critical to start?
Yeah, it's absolutely very regulated. And that means it's regulated in the sense that you need a license to operate. So you need to have a qualified pharmacist on board. Your pharmacy needs to be registered in a national registry. So you need to apply for that. And then you need some sort of different codes, basically, to be able as a pharmacist to deliver care. And the care in the Netherlands is not paid by the end user directly. It's paid by the insurance companies, at least in the pharmacy sector. So that means you also need different or individual contracting with the insurance companies. So it's not that you sign basically one thing and you're ready to go. You need to sign with, let's say, 8 different insurance companies. So you need to negotiate fair terms with them in order to deliver your service.
And was it hard to get these partnerships with insurers for a new player like MedApp?
Yeah, so for some people, for let's say some insurers, it was not that hard because they are keen on a change in the business model, and they're also looking at a very closed market that almost acts like there's a monopoly, so they cannot really do that much, and they are looking for basically something to break it and to get things going. Whereas other insurance companies are very conservative. So we even had an insurance company who refused to sign up online pharmacies. They said, we just do not do that. And then we said, yeah, but we have, let's say, 200 or 300 customers that are already coming or that we now have at partner pharmacies that will work with us from next month. Are you going to do that? And then they told us, okay, then we're going to make something like a unique direct supplier. I said, what is a unique direct supplier? Well, we don't know, but we just do not contract online pharmacies. So
why not?
Then they think of a workaround. And yeah, why not? Because they say they do not believe in the model. They believe that the quality of care is not there. It's all sorts of different and sometimes also a bit, let's say, fake relationships between people working there and the outside world and lobbying and a very closed and weird community, actually.
Well, great job of pushing through and getting MedApp off the ground. Do you also need a separate permit because you're online, or from a regulatory perspective, do you qualify as a normal pharmacy, so to say?
You qualify as a normal pharmacy, but there's an optional permit if you want to sell prescription drugs online, or it's actually something you need to have, but then you're also being encouraged to put it on your website. And this is a European thing where you are registered and then people know it's okay. And with all these new designer, I'm now saying designer, but more, let's say, lifestyle drugs coming up, such as Ozempic and that kind of stuff, then there is actually a lot of counterfeit medicines that are being dispensed. So I very much encourage that, but the general public is not fully aware of it. So they're still basically buying cheap Ozempic online.
And could you describe your customer base for us? What kind of people order at MedApp?
So people who become a customer at MedApp tend to be chronically ill, use multiple medications on a daily basis. And it's not so much that they are all, say, 50 plus, or that they are really, that they have one disease. We do have some diseases that are more prevalent in our base. But in general, I would say these people, they struggle to take their medication. And then they start looking for, or they recommend it, but they appreciate that we have a platform that helps them take the medication in a better way. And our platform is available for everybody. So that basically means if you are a customer of a pharmacy, your own brick and mortar pharmacy around the corner, then you can still use, let's say, 80% of the features that we offer. So the medication alerts are available. There is the prescription leaflets are there. There's even an opportunity for you to do some stock tracking. So you get a lot of options and value in there. And then basically we offer you to switch and to come to our pharmacy.
And could you elaborate a bit on what diseases make up most of the medicines that people buy via MedApp?
So I would say that in general, if you look at a normal pharmacy, then roughly 20% of their customer base is chronically ill and has a serious amount of diseases. Whereas the biggest chunk of the customers is basically the people that come once or twice a year, and not that much. We do not have that portion of the population, or at least not that much. It's a very tiny percentage. And what we see, of course, is the, let's say, so-called the big diseases, such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. But MedApp has from the start also focused on a few diseases where we believe we can make a difference. So this is, for instance, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's pretty big. And what is also big in our population is people with HIV. Migraine is big. So, more diseases where it matters that you actually take the medication and people feel that there is some sort of struggling element.
Yeah, that gives a bit of color. And so you're mainly catering to the chronically ill. What would it take to offer your services to everyone?
Well, if you want to open up to everyone, of course, you run into some sort of capacity problem because you need to follow a certain procedure in order to be able to deliver care, let's say, to meet the bar of quality of care. So there are some standards there that you need to meet, and we are in the process of making that faster every day, basically. So if we would open up right now, let's say our team wouldn't be able to handle that. And then you can, of course, say, okay, then you can basically double or triple or quadruple the size of the company, and then you get going. But I think if you are able to automate that first and really integrate the pharmacy in your app and make sure that the flow end to end is completely digital, then I think there is a good basis to open up and scale to everybody. And right now, that's just not the case. So there's still a lot of manual labor involved and a lot of workarounds in the process. So if we have everything fixed, and that took us a bit longer than I expected, then I think you're open and you're ready to basically cater the entire country.
And what are the key reasons for people to choose MedApp over their brick and mortar pharmacy?
I think there's a couple of them. There's reasons people say, I'm not so happy with my normal pharmacy anymore. So you see there is a shortage of pharmacy technicians. Also opening hours tend to get now a bit challenging. So the pharmacies are not open from 8 to 7 anymore. So there is a thing where people say, this is something I do not like that much. And there's people that are using our medication alarms and our general service that's free. And then they say, hey, how nice would it be if this was completely integrated as my pharmacy? Because MedApp is helping me out already to take my medication on a daily basis. So why not that they deliver? So the funny thing is the reason why you're getting paid is a bit different than the reason what you're doing in daily lives. So we are helping people and help them take their medication in a better way. And we're basically being paid to dispense medication. And that's only a tiny fraction of the customer journey. So that's
Have you considered charging for the adherence part of your business separately?
Definitely. So, and the truth is also in the beginning, we were not able to open the pharmacy. So very much back in the days, the idea was an online pharmacy, or basically change the pharmacy model and have it run it from an app. But we did not have the money and the opportunity to open so, also because we were students at the time. And I think that's always a bit more complicated than if you need money and if you want to raise from investors. So we started off a bit forced to open a platform or set up a platform that would help people take medication in a better way. And we thought in the beginning, why not find other business models in order to fund that? So we had some, say, smaller deals with insurance companies where they would pay us for improved adherence to their population. But then you run a bit into the fact that it's not a well-known payment title, so it's not completely in the healthcare system. So for them, it's more innovation or add-on budget. So you do these smaller deals. But also with pharma companies. And the pharma companies were looking for a platform to provide care solutions, but it's very much a drug by drug basis where you do it. So then you have something that's in patent and it's very hot, and then they want to make a deal, but you cannot do, let's say, the 20 portfolio medicines from GSK at once. It's business unit by business unit, and then I want to start with one medicine. So we did a lot of different stuff around it, and also working with community pharmacies, seeing if that would work and that would give our customers, let's say, a better customer journey. But we realized we needed, let's say, the last piece of the puzzle, and that was that you would have an end-to-end journey from basically coming in to actually getting dispensed the medication by us and having us invoice it directly to your insurance company.
And that was in 2020, right? Where you added that last piece to everything you were already doing.
Yeah. So basically, So started off learning what a customer really needed and what medication usage meant, because that was something as a pharmacist I also didn't know. In the pharmacy, you're at what we call the other side of the counter, and then you see these people and they're coming to you. But I think when I started working at MedApp, I saw what like heavy medication usage was. And when we invited customers over to our office and they brought 25 different medicines, and I was thinking, how the hell are you going to manage this? Something I wouldn't be successful at myself. Mm-hmm. So you feel privileged that you're healthy. And we learned there, and we're talking to customers there what they needed most in a tool like ours. And I think with that experience and the experience in mind, we then came back to the pharmacy where at least I learned how hard it is to integrate all these old school systems into a new environment. So we were very much in the, let's say, the impression, and in our mindset was that you could basically connect everything and that we would have APIs for everything. And we were having these APIs, but old school systems you need in order to make sure that you get your invoice to the insurance company. Yeah, these are that stuff that you need and that has an industry standard, but that doesn't mean it is ready for the new way of pharmacy. So that was definitely a challenge.
I can imagine.
And something that took longer than I expected as well.
I can imagine. You mentioned before that you bootstrapped the company and found hidden funding. I'm sure everybody's very keen to hear more about hidden funding. Can you elaborate a bit?
Especially from a pharmacist, I guess. It's quite tricky to say, so I should elaborate here. So when we were thinking about the idea, we were still students. So we were talking to people, can you help us set this up? And maybe to some, let's say, experienced pharmacists, if they could provide us with some funding. And you run into the issue that they say, okay, this is very much against my own business model. And if you are successful here, or if you try this, then you will basically will not be able to work at another pharmacy anymore because you are a person who's trying to break the model. So then you feel how it is being set up. So we needed to start ourselves. We ran out of money quite soon because it was a bit of leftovers from our student loans that we could put in. When we had finished the money, you need more. And then you think, what am I going to do? And we had, luckily, my co-founder was more or less an IT consultant as a student. So he was building websites and doing some mainly apps because it was the app area. And he was quite a decent app programmer. He was doing that with friends. And we said, okay, let's try to structure that business and get some orders in so we can make money as an IT consultant, basically doing small IT assignments and using that cash flow to bring MedApp where it is today, so raise it a bit bigger. And what happened later on in the journey when the funding was there, the IT company grew and grew. We separated the companies, split them into two legal entities. But the IT business kept going and we always kept working together. So we had the advantage during funding rounds, and basically also because Edwin he's like a computer scientist by heart and he likes the hobby and do things himself. So we had the opportunity to have access to, and that's unlimited, but we had a close to unlimited amount of IT resources. And that was completely the opposite compared to other startups and other scale-ups and other people who were struggling to have that. And we could use, let's say, hours from really good developers. Edwin could cherry pick them. He could cheer them up to work in the evening, work in the weekend, check their work and improve them. So there was always for us a part where, let's say, we did a funding round, we had X IT budget, and then we were always able to squeeze that out, put a bit in extra ourselves in order to make sure that the product was good enough that we would hit the next milestone and able to continue.
Great. Yeah, I can imagine that's a huge advantage in developing the platform. Do you have example companies in the US or elsewhere where, because of regulatory environment, because of maybe more money being available or delivery or adherence, apps in all shapes and forms are more advanced, where you look at and where you'd want to grow to?
Well, when we started, we were definitely looking also at the US and looking at other countries. But at that time, there was a company in the UK called Echo Pharmacy. Not sure if you've heard of it, but it had to deal with the NHS and it was setting up a model like we wanted. I think there was a former guy, he worked at Apple, and we were thinking, oh shit, man, we are not able to raise a euro. And these guys can raise 7 million or 8 million pounds because they have prior experience. And I think it was also at that time when the company PillPack started, but it was a bit later and it was not so known by then, or at least it was not on our radar. And when they popped on our radar, I think they just did a round with, it's a large investor. I think it's Axel or something who put in money there. And then it was a known player and they grew and they grew. And I was looking at their pharmacist, TJ Parker is his name. And I thought that it could be I could be him, I thought, because what is he doing? He's working with a computer scientist, me and Edwin. So what does he have what I do not have? And then you realize it's also a very different market. The regulation, of course, is different, but also drug prices are very different. So there's a lot that comes to it and also a lot that I don't know. But I was always a bit jealous and always thinking, wow, this guy is doing really, really well. And then they exited to Amazon and PillPack became Amazon Pharmacy. And it makes sense, or there is value in that deal. I'm not sure how they are doing right now, so I haven't checked, let's say, yearly reports or any other updates. I think they keep it a bit vague as well. But if you see what they're doing with their Prime model and how the customer base that they have, then I believe it makes a lot of sense for them to do something in the US where drug costs are just exploding. So
yeah, I can imagine.
There's an opportunity there.
The integration makes a lot of sense to me as well. Have you ever been approached by Amazon or equivalent platforms to integrate, to work together, or maybe even acquire MedApp?
Yeah, so we've always been approached quite a lot during that time, but then not so much like the Amazon equivalents, but also like other strategic players in the field and people who or want to jump into the medicine market but have a footprint in already another big consumer business. So there's always been interest in the model. And I think the moment Amazon acquired PillPack and we're starting to push it out, and I think it only became hotter and hotter. And also the investors were then thinking, okay, this is now something that will happen. We were saying, we've been saying this for years and now you only believe it. Yeah, but this is a big company. And
I guess it helps when Amazon does what you predict would happen. And you mentioned that Corona was very impactful for MedApp in a couple of ways. Could you walk us through what happened, how it happened, and how it played out in the end?
So Corona, I think sector-wise, it moved in all sectors to more digital first, or at least have a digital alternative. And I think the pharmacy sector realized that digital native was for them very hard and very far from their bed. So I think we were doing that model. We were opening the pharmacy by then, but we were also raising or at least trying to raise money and close a round. And their Corona was not so helpful. So I think especially in the beginning, also all investors were very hesitant to push through with deals because nobody knew what was going on. Stock markets were going down every day 10% plus. So especially during the beginning, it was quite a crazy time. And so we missed a round, or basically we're not able to close it. And we applied for a government loan. And there was a government loan in the Netherlands, or at least an opportunity to get one. If you were having your existing investors on board, then the government was able or was willing to also put in money there. And that allowed us to survive and to basically develop other opportunities. It was also the moment where we were approached by Shop Apotheke and now Redcare Pharmacy. And then we started talking to them because they asked us, we can provide a round, we can even provide you with more. And that's how the discussion got started.
And operationally speaking, did the volumes explode during Corona?
So we were opening pharmacy, so we were not having that it would explode. I think there was, for us, there was more, suddenly much more pull from the, let's say, the professional side. So people in the field were making a change. On the consumer side, let's say the app has always been growing. So that traction, it did not explode. It was going steadily up. But we were not having the pharmacy by then or having it had it rolled out. So I'm not sure if we experienced it, would have experienced it in our pharmacy because it was not there.
Got it. Yeah, you were already planning to launch it, but then you just experienced more pull from the market. So I can imagine it helped with getting it off the ground.
Yeah, I think in general it's been positive. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And you mentioned before that you think founder's skin in the game is very important. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah, so I very much believe in having skin in the game. And if you have the idea that is the thing you need to fix and that it's like the most important thing to you, then that is, for me, it's been a good driver to work on it and put a lot of hours in it and try to find different solutions. And the moment, if you have skin in the game, that your resources are very scarce and that you do not have the opportunity to basically do everything you want to do, then you are getting more creative because you want to be successful and you do not want to disappoint others and you want to prove this to yourself. So that it puts a lot of pressure on you. But if you have the space basically to handle the pressure, I'm very much aware that if you have a family and if you have a lot of obligations on a personal basis, then this gets really hard. And I think it can also, I also see that it can work against you. But by then, more or less, we had nothing to lose. So then you start going harder and harder.
And can you give an example of how both skin in the game and the resource scarcity has helped developing MedApp?
So the moment when the founding, it already came because let's say the first euros we put in, that was our own money, or it wasn't even our own money, it was debt. It was a student loan. So Edwin and I think we both put in the first, let's say 15 to 20K or something ourselves. So each. By then, there was a lot of money because you saved it and you knew at some point you need to pay this back, whether or not this will be a success. So if you put in your own money, and I would then call that skin in the game too, for sure. And that feels like every euro you spend, you start to think, okay, do I need to spend it here? So if you need to order lunch for your team because you start working and that's something you promise them to give up their weekend and work 10 plus hours with you, you will go to the Lidl yourself and you not go to Albert Heijn because you know it's your own money and you need to pay it back at one point. So this is like a very practical example, but it also forces you to make clear choices. So for us, it was very clear that we couldn't open a pharmacy simply because we were not having the money. And after, let's say, talking to 5 or 6 or 7 investors and knowing that they will not fund you without a prototype or without a running business, you know it's not in sight and you need to deal with not having that money. And you can only dream at night what you will do if, let's say, somebody would wire $1 million or something. So you get used to it, and if you still want to succeed, I believe you'll find ways around to still reach your goal.
Cool, makes sense.
To some extent, that's.
And sometimes you don't, like with
absolutely not
right away. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and sometimes I believe that, but then I, on the other hand, believe that you then need the experience to make sure to allocate the money. So I think right now I have more experience to allocate a serious number than I would have had then. So I understand the investors who are having the discussion with us. If you're gonna give a lot of money to a person who has not done that before or been in the position, that is a serious risk, and you're not sure whether he or she will be successful there. So I get that context.
Yep. But eventually you've exited the business to a pan-European player in 2021. Why did you exit eventually?
So we were looking for the round and we had the government loan. We felt very much we wanted to pay it back because there were also basically discussions going around how long can you last? Do you need to pay it back straight away? But Edwin, so my co-founder, and I, we felt very much we need to pay back this money and something that we took from society, and we do not want to have it on our name that we will not pay it back. So we wanted to pay that back, and we more importantly wanted to set steps. And if you start talking about funding, then it's also a very theoretical game. You're making decks, you're doing update calls, you're drinking coffee with investors, but it's all words. It's not action. And we already had people on our payroll. We had a platform, and we thought time is now. And then you know that PillPack was acquired. You think, when is the next player coming to the Netherlands? So you're getting a bit nervous, and you also want to move. You feel the momentum is there, and that you want to be in that game. And when we were approached by Redcare, we had a great conversation about how will the funding look like, but also what have they done in different countries? How is that model looking? What are the challenges? And then you get enthusiastic because you think, okay, there is so much more possible if we do this. They can really make the company big, and the team will profit enormously. Let's go.
And what did that process look like? Like, have you been flirting for a long time, or was that immediately a success? And did you move forward right away? Like, how did that look like?
Well, because at the time we were having investors, so they also had a say in how to proceed, and they were also having thoughts about, of course, the price and how much money would be left for everybody. So the moment we were in discussions with them, we disclosed it. So we told our investors, they said, okay, great, that there's appetite and it's really good, but you guys are being approached more often. And we said, yeah, but this is a special player. And they said, yeah, great, but keep focusing on your own track, keep going with the race, and build out that business, use the loan as much as possible, and make sure that your preferred route is the route where you will be an independent company. And in the basis, we wanted to be an independent company. So I think we were aligned there, but we were experiencing firsthand how hard it was then again to put that round together. And then at some point you start to think, okay, this deal is now on the table. We can bring this forward. Then I know what will happen, and the outcome is predictable, and my risk changes from a financial risk or a financing risk to way more an operational and a market risk. Yeah, then we said to them, okay, we want to take this offer because we believe it's the best way forward. It's the best way forward for the mission. And we want MedApp to be successful. We want our team to be successful, and we want to be able to pay their salaries and not like hesitate every month during payroll time whether or not we could afford it. So we want to get over that, and we want to make sure that this company can be successful.
Yeah.
And that's a tough decision to take because you're basically disappointing them to pick less favorable outcome at the time because they all believe it's going to, 10x, 20x could be. Then there's only potential, but they are not doing the work. So, and they are not having the discussion and the struggle. So I think that's
a real exit is better than a potential exit, I would stress.
But the company was still very small. So if you compare it, and that's something that we admire in a PillPack, for instance, they had a sizable revenue. It was several millions, maybe I would say at least 10 plus. And then the company is sizable, and then America, and especially at the time, was willing to pay many times. Like it was a very high revenue multiple. So that's a different game. And then you look at that game and you think, okay, could I do something here myself? But apparently we were not in the position to do it, or the market was not there, or it was a bit of both. And then that's what it is, and you need to deal with it.
And did a lot change for both how you organized the company operationally and for the team, and also for you and your co-founder after the acquisition?
Yeah, I think a lot changed, but most things changed in a positive manner. So you're thinking, okay, we're now part of let's say a bigger company, and you are not the owner anymore because they have acquired it. But we were very impressed with the amount of trust that was given to us to roll out the plan, basically invest a lot of money, hire a lot of people, test the model, see that things were working, see that other things were not working, and then readjust them. So I was really surprised with there's no difference when you walk in the door. So Monday morning after the deal, you walk in the door, everything is the same. Nothing changes on a practical basis. Literally nothing. And if you look at the cap table, of course, it's different. And if you look, we were also still managing directors who were able to sign all the contracts. So it was not that I needed to get permission for every 10,000 to spend. So with that amount of freedom, and it was literally on that level, there was no change. And there was a change in terms of the industry expertise we were getting. There was for us a change in the amount of resources we had. So how many people we could hire. So there were a lot of things that were suddenly possible, and it was also then a great part of the experience to do that and actually see and deploy these resources. I think that's also sometimes you tend to forget it, but that's an enormous opportunity as well. So I feel privileged that we had the chance to do
that
it.
sounds great. Do you have any advice for founders that are being approached by potential acquirers? Like how do you deal with a situation? How do you determine whether what's proposed is good for you, both financially and operationally? And what are other learnings that you have from that process?
I would advise to start to think first, what do you want to get out of it? How do you see the path in the next few years? Are you, first of all, purely looking or mostly looking for a financial reward? And I think the discussion is different, that you want to get as much money up front as possible. You start to optimize for that. But if you if you believe in the mission and the vision, and you want to stay, you plan to stay involved, then I would optimize for other things. I would optimize for the investment budget you would have later on. I would optimize for basically the freedom you have to act as a founder / managing director. Yeah, I think the number one advice would be, what do you want to get out of it? And how do you see yourself? If you look in the mirror and you say very honestly, how is the next 2 or 3 years looking for me, and where do I want to be?
Solid advice. I think that's super useful for people that find themselves in the same situation. For you personally, this has been a long journey. You sound super passionate about the business, but lots has changed as well. How have you developed as a person because of MedApp?
Well, I always find it a really difficult question to answer, but I think you have a lot of exposure. So you are, if you compare it to cycling, you are cycling in the head of the race for your feelings. So if you compare it to people who have a bit of the same age, then have had a more relaxed life. They've done more social activities. And for me, it's been working long hours, weekends, a week holiday, a year or maybe 2 if you are lucky. Always bring your laptop. And that then seems like an enormous sacrifice. It seems like you've had a very hard time. I've not experienced it in that way. At least my impression of the experience is, maybe that's with a trauma, right? Then you think about the good things. But the impression is that you've had the opportunity to work with people that were way ahead of you in terms of their career. So you were able to negotiate a big contract. And there were not that many people in my age who were, let's say, negotiating $1 million+ contract. That's something that is, you learn and you learn again, and you fail and then you learn again. So that, I think that has helped me a lot. And in terms of what do you develop then, and there's a lot of people skills. There's people that are doing weird stuff. There's moments where you have the feeling that you don't really see the future yourself anymore. So how do you handle with the failures, and how do you handle victory, and how do you handle weird situations with people? And I think in all different aspects, you grow a lot faster if you are being exposed to these factors.
And how important was your co-founder for you and for the company? You mentioned Edwin a couple of times. Could you maybe describe a little bit how you work, why that has worked so well, and what impact that had, both on sort of how you experienced the journey, but also on the company?
Yeah, Edwin has been extremely important. I think he has been more important for the company than I've been. And that's because he's the product guy. So he's the guy who can create something out of basically almost like it looks like nothing. And if you are the guy who can coach yourself and you can bring the people together, so you're not only a decent programmer, but you're also very creative, and you're able to make sure that people who are smart and who are computer engineers, that they get very enthusiastic and that they're willing to stop gaming and start working weekends and evenings. Invaluable for me to start. And the company for the first few years was, let's say, 8 or 10 geeks, 10 computer scientists, and most of them working part-time with us, and me as the only pharmacist. So it shifted later on much more to a pharmacy company where we're having PTAs, etc. So for me, in the beginning, it was just making sure Edwin and the boys were happy and were able to work, and Edwin and I making sure there was funding and talking to all these different players. So I was very much focused on the outside of the company, and now it's also more on the inside because there's more pharmacy-related business to handle. But for sure, without Edwin, I wasn't here from a business perspective, and on a personal perspective as well, because you need to handle a lot of difficult questions. And I very much feel that it's really good to have different opinions around the table. I think Edwin is more than me. Even more than me, he's a very red-collared person, so very much into action, clarity, and that gives discussion. And also, you have different viewpoints, but if you like each other on a personal basis and you can get along, and we knew each other way back, then I believe that combination is very powerful. Then you have, let's say, a complementary skill set, but you like each other on a personal basis, and you will spend so much time together that is needed in order to be successful.
Would that be your key
without
advice?
Edwin, I wouldn't be here.
Would that be the advice for people that are looking for a co-founder right now? Like click on a personal level and complementary skill sets, or are there maybe other things that you'd also stress are super important?
Yeah, I think these two are really important, and I think it's also important that you build up a decent amount of experience before you enter the adventure together. At least that would be my advice. I think it's the most important thing you can pick. It's even more. It's way more important than your investor. I think you can get rid of an investor, but the founder is something that's in the DNA of the company, so you cannot get rid of. It's really hard to get rid of. So yeah, for sure. Also for yourself on a personal basis, so you can be very successfully or still be successful from a business perspective. But if you do not enjoy the ride, and if you do not feel safe and comfortable, and that you enjoy working, at least for me, a sense of humor and make a joke every day, that's really practical to break. That's really needed, essential to break a long day and make sure that's still worth it to get up and get out there. So yeah, I think it's a good personal click. It's complementary skills. It's sharing humor together, and also knowing that you have somebody you can trust 100%, who will not screw you in any circumstance, who will always think of you if they would make a decision for themselves. Oh. If you have that, I think maybe that's the most important.
Good to go. Yeah, that's solid advice. Thanks. And Piet, when you look at your own journey and think back of where you were when starting MedApp, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know today to the Piet at the beginning of the journey?
That's also quite a difficult question.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, you are here for the difficult questions. I think maybe the advice that I would have, when you start, you are, at least we were very opportunistic. We were thinking that, this will roll and we can make this work. I think the advice would be in some ways to be more realistic. So also from a funding perspective, maybe I would now say, this is not possible for $1 million. You at least need 10. And then everybody would say, yeah, sure, but that's a no deal. And then maybe it would be good to say, sorry, but then it's not a deal, because in the end, you need a certain amount of resources. So I think we've been maybe too flexible, saying, okay, we can make this work. Okay, we trim it down completely. And so I would give myself the advice that there is basis level of costs. It's not always a good idea to say that it's possible for less than that amount. So maybe stick there to the basic plan and the financials that come with it.
Does that mean in your case that you would not have started at all, or would you have pushed for raising more at the beginning?
Yeah, I think probably, but then you immediately realize you were not in the position then there to do it, or I think it was not possible to do it. So it would be solid advice, and I would now agree if I would have told myself by then that it was the case. But if I'm realistic, I think it was not on the table for us, or at least it's my impression now. But maybe it would come on the table if you would have that mindset. So I think the advice still stands.
Got it. And if you had to start a business all over again, what kind of business would it be?
So there's many ideas, and I think during MedApp there are like 20 or maybe 40 ideas that we've been thinking of and also been working on a little bit. And so there's no shortage of ideas. I think there's a shortage of time, and there's a shortage of decent execution to make sure that these ideas become successful. So I'm still with Edwin in the IT business. I think he's now focusing on that. So he left MedApp last month, basically as a co-founder and becoming more on the background, a bit of an advisor, but also very much himself focusing on building something and making it grow really fast again. So I'm looking forward to work with him on a different basis there. I see that the general IT business grow, and there are many opportunities that are coming by. I would like to do something more software as a service related in healthcare. I see too many players there that are screwing their customers and asking for a very high fee. And since there's no competition, they can make the money. And I also would like to do something on the consumer side, but then way more simple. So the pharmacy landscape is complex, different payers. It's a very regulated market. But let's say something where you have one product and you can sell it on a subscription basis. Maybe, a vitamin or a supplement or something like that. That would be fun.
Yeah. And look forward to it on the long term, what you'll come up with, should you ever decide to start something new. But you also mentioned you hate quitting. You want to give everything before you even consider doing this. How did that get into your system, and how does that work for you?
Well, it's been always a bit in my system not to give up, because I think it's also something that was given to us when we grew up. Parents told us it's not like really bad, it's not a bad thing to fail, but if you fail, you need to give everything. So if we had the opportunity to try many different sports, and it was okay to basically getting enrolled on, let's say, a sports class was close to zero hurdle to get there, but to quit, there was a hurdle, because then you needed to have tried it for a serious time. You needed to go to training. You couldn't skip training. So there were consequences of the decision, and then quitting was way harder than starting. And I think then, you come a bit into that mindset, and you feel certain pride, and you want to prove yourself to others, and to your parents, and to your co-founder, and to your employees. You just you want to make it work.
And you also mentioned your dad has stimulated developing, let's call it businessy skills. He let you sell his car, for example, or a boat. Could you describe that process and also speculate a bit on what he had in mind when he did that?
God, I'm an open book. I tell too much about myself and about that history. He helped me a lot in terms of giving the trust and the opportunity to do something like that, because I was at the time 15 or something, and it was selling a car for, 6,000 euros or something. By then it was an enormous amount for me on a personal basis. And him saying, okay, I can do it myself, but I want you to do it because I believe you will generate a better outcome. Go for it. And then completely clean up the car, making pictures, put it on the marketplace, and chatting and calling with potentially interested customers, also having them come over and do the test ride with them, negotiating with them without any interference or no one, knowing that there was no one to back you up. Yeah, that felt like something that made me feel really responsible and really eager and keen to show him that I was willing to pull it off and bring in a big envelope with fives and tens, and then totally adding up to that amount.
That's amazing. And he wasn't there, like explicitly, like, don't count on me and you take care of it, right?
Yeah, he said, I'm available, so you can call me if there's needed. I think he was just doing some stuff around. But then I tried to call him because we needed to go to the post office to switch the ownership cards from us to the new owner. But he didn't pick up his phone. So he was, I think by then, especially him now, he's not on call all the time. So I think he thought, well, let's go. And there was nobody at home, to be honest. So I felt a bit scared with these people in our house in the beginning, because they had quite a long drive, and they wanted to make a stop at the bathroom, and they needed coffee. So I needed to fix it completely end to end. And that made the story better, but also made the experience better.
Did he ever tell you what he had in mind doing that? Like, did he want to groom you as an entrepreneur, or was he just enjoying the process? Anything in that category?
No, that's a good question.
Just did it not
I think I
feel
should
like
ask him
car?
if I see him next time. But I think if I had to guess right now, I think he was confident that I would take it very seriously, and he knew he hated it doing himself, so he didn't want to interact with the people on the marketplace, and then he would have sold it to a garage. So I think he thought the chances of me getting a low outcome are not that high, and this is a great opportunity for my son to prove himself. So let's go.
Awesome. You also told me that he, at age 14, if I recall it correctly, basically he told you, hey, Pitt, my dear friend, in 4 years from now, you have to take care of yourself. What did that trigger in you, and how has it impacted you on the long term?
I was a bit scared with that, because it felt like really hard. And my birthday is in April. So I knew that the exam year, it runs until May. So I thought, how are we going to bridge these months? I was always told that if you need to study, you need to get out of the house. So that was not completely new. But there was a hard deadline on my birthday. In the end, it turned out to be of a joke, because I stayed until the summer, and then I started studying. And I was always welcome at home, but I think he wanted to make a statement that you need to move out. And where I grew up, there were also many kids that choose to stay at their parents and maybe choose a university close by and then travel back and forth. And he always said it's good for you if you get on your own feet and if you fly out. And then he made really hard and explicit that there was a deadline. So I felt scared by then, and I was a bit more quiet. And I thought about it a lot, and then also asked him, "Are you really serious?" And in the beginning, he said, "Yeah, I'm extremely serious." And then later on, I think the story became a bit more nuanced. But then the effect was already there. I was already thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? What's needed then in order to survive on your own?
Mm-hmm. And I know you're on the verge of becoming a dad yourself. Would you take the same approach?
That depends a bit, I think, on the character. If you have somebody who is not completely in his comfort zone, I was by then, I think, very much in my comfort zone, and I think it was also a bit of a subtle pushback, I guess, and also to make me feel like, okay, this is not. You can be very proud that you are now that you think you're doing really great, but there is more in life, and there is a next step. So if my kid would be in that position, then I think I can pull the trick myself. But if somebody is not completely in their comfort zone, they're struggling a bit, I think it's not really appropriate. So it's not a must-have, but I would be proud if there was an opportunity to pull it.
If you can, you would.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Pit. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Lots of respect for what you pulled off with MedApp. Looking forward to seeing how you'll do in the future. Do you have any last words before we wrap up, or any messages you would like to share with the audience?
Well, we've had a lot of, we talked a lot about MedApp, and we talked a lot about myself. Maybe a question to you. Where's this big show in 2 years?
Great question. Well, our aim is to celebrate founders and inspire others, inspire existing founders, and also inspire others to start the company they've been dreaming about. So that's in my mind the ultimate metric. If you can get that done, then I'd be very satisfied. And hopefully around the world, there are already listeners in over 25 countries. It's always very satisfying to see the map, and I hope we can spread the wisdom and spread the stories from all over the world to all over the world.
Cool. Sounds great. Best of luck. We'll chat later.
Thanks, Pit. Cheers.
All right. Bye.